Here in Greater West Bloomfield, the celebration of Black History Month continues with special programs all across our community, including at both the main branch and the West Acres branch of the West Bloomfield Township Public Library. That includes an upcoming appearance by an author and a filmmaker, Caleb Rainey, who will be joining us now on the Splash Live to tell us more about his special appearance. Caleb, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on, as you are going to be at the West Bloomfield Township Public Library sharing spoken word poems and tackling quite a wide variety of really important topics in our society today and throughout history. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect when they see you at the library.
Yeah, people can expect poems that are going to tackle race relations. I grew up in the Midwest as a Black man, and so my poems tackle these kind of tough conversations, but also a level of vulnerability and heart, because I think our biggest change comes from when we recognize the humanity within each other. So I will be performing poems for about 60 to 90 minutes and talking about my experiences.
And so spoken word is your sort of outlet of choice in this scenario for performance, but also you're a storyteller. You've written books, you've produced films. So how does a spoken word act ultimately get that message across in a really powerful way that people will be able to witness in person at our library?
Yes, I think what's really different than maybe reading these stories in a book is that you get to associate a face with these stories, and my voice gets to carry. You can hear the pain when I'm talking about some of those tough moments, right? Or the joy when it comes to me celebrating my own history. And so what you get out of spoken word is this real live art. And every time I share a poem, every time I perform a spoken word piece, it's a little different because I'm a little different every moment, every minute. And so it becomes this moment where real people get to sit in art in real time.
And how do you feel the reaction from that helps to further these really important societal conversations we continue to need to have, for better or for worse? They see, as you said, that personal element of these stories. Does that help to aid sort of that ever important conversation after the fact?
Oh, absolutely. I think even the fact that it is a live performance makes it so that we're more likely to talk about it afterwards. You may read a book at home and then never talk about it with anyone in your life again. But in a moment where it was alive and you talked about it with me or with someone next to you, then afterwards you go talking about it with your family and your friends, and you get to spark some of these conversations because you're already more comfortable with it being said out loud. The quiet part is being said out loud, and now we have the permission to speak about it.
Caleb Rainey is an award-winning author, performer, and short film producer who will be at the West Bloomfield Township Public Library in their main branch's meeting room Tuesday, February 18th, beginning at 7 o'clock. Spoken word poetry and a great conversation on really important topics that affect everybody in our community and relate back to the ever-important Black History Month as we continue to celebrate and recognize the impact of Black history here in Greater West Bloomfield and beyond. You mentioned some of the key topics that you'll be discussing sort of on a broad range, but what's some of the overarching messages that people are going to learn even more about as they do see your performance on Tuesday, February 18th, and engage in those conversations with their neighbors and friends afterward?
Yeah, so we'll be covering things like police brutality, but we'll also be covering things like the education system and my experiences and challenges that came with being in the education system in the Midwest as a Black man or a Black child, really. And we'll also be talking about those social relationships. There is a poem where I talk about a white man who comes up to me and asks me why Black men don't want to be good dads, right? And we get to have this conversation both in the piece and then in the performance space where we get to unpack these kind of tighter, more specific moments. And so that's kind of what we'll be ranging through.
You can find more information on Black History Month programming through the West Bloomfield Township Public Library on the website West Bloom. LIB is on Facebook, or you can find them on WBLIB.org. That includes a performance and a conversation with Caleb Rainey Tuesday, February 18th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the meeting room at the main branch of the West Bloomfield Township Public Library. He joins us on the Splash Live as we preview his upcoming appearance at our local library. And connection's really important with these stories. Of course, those that are in our community that have shared experiences in our Black community are going to be able to really relate to some of your stories, but others, we have a very diverse community of people of all different ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, certainly cultural and religious backgrounds. How do you hope they're able to relate to these stories? How do you keep those relatable to them in a way that does spark those conversations and does spark ultimately some learning and some thought afterwards?
Well, I come from a educator's background. I'm an educator. My mother was, and so the way that I approach my artistry and my work and my performances is to meet people where they're at. So even though I'm bringing my full self and I'm talking about my personal experiences, my goal in all of my work is to kind of boil it down to the center point of what it really is about, what value we're talking about. Are we talking about empathy, compassion, understanding? Are we talking about showing up and supporting others? Those are things that are across all diverse backgrounds and identities. Those are values that we hold as a community or as a human being. And those are the things that I'm always hoping to reach and bring out in my performances so that we will never just be stuck in this, well, that's not my experience and I don't understand it, so I'm not going to engage with it. No, no, no. This is the human experience.
And part of the beauty of art is that you're able to open people's eyes to different perspectives or make them think about things maybe from a different angle. And whether that changes their mind or not is really not the purpose of that art, but rather to get them thinking about these complicated topics that affect many people in our community. And so, Caleb, as you perform these acts and you have these different conversations with our community following your performance on Tuesday, it's no secret. We live in a very divisive time. We have a lot of people that are really questioning the role of identity in our society today. So as you do engage in these performances and you do hope that people take a little bit away from what you perform on Tuesday, February 18th, and how much more important do you believe maybe it is that you do have this sort of discussion through art in today's society especially?
I think art is the place where we allow our guard to drop a little bit. And I think in these times, we really need that. I think when we lead with a hyper political conversation, it can be really hard to listen to each other. But art is this question of what if we bring humanity into the conversation? What if we bring in creativity and alternate perspectives to allow ourselves to kind of stretch our mind? And I think we approach art with that comfortability where we don't approach it with some of the other harder conversations.
Caleb Rainey is with us. He is a spoken word artist who will be performing as part of the West Bloomfield Township's Public Library's Black History Month programming Tuesday, February 18th. That performance at the main library in the meeting room. More information on WBLIB.org or follow them on Facebook at West Bloom LIB. Caleb, what ultimately keeps you coming back to do more of these performances, not only in our local libraries, but in other places all across the U.S. and sparks that passion for you to continue to tell these stories in different ways?
I think for me, it is truly the conversations that happen after the performance. I am not a performer who shares my poetry and then hides. I am standing right in the room with you so that we can keep talking. And there are people who have come up to me and said, I see things differently now. Or I never knew exactly how to name that, and now I do. Or I've heard a little bit about this, but I've never fully understood, and now I get it. And those are the things that make me keep coming back, because I'm hoping that together we will hold hands and go to a brighter future and a better understanding with more compassion and love. And those are where those conversations start. And so I get my cup filled by helping others move closer to where we are all a little bit better.
Caleb, we've got about 1 more minute left with you before we'll have to move on today. So if people are just tuning in, give them that last minute pitch for why they should come out and see you and join in on that conversation and connection at the West Bloomfield Library.
Absolutely. You should come out because there is going to be a real, authentic human connection that's happening in that space where it is a divisive time and we need to be closer to each other.
He is an award-winning artist who does this all throughout the U.S. and has won many different awards, including finishing 7th in the 2023 UNESCO Slam-O-Vision Global Poetry Slam in Iowa City. And you'll be able to see him very soon at the West Bloomfield Township Public Library. Caleb, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.